Well, I don't know about you guys, but man, I love that song. It sure is encouraging to hear it. I haven't heard it for a long time, and it's great. You guys sounded awesome too, you know, everybody piping in there and getting going. It's very exciting. I almost was a little too emotional to get up here and talk, so I love that stuff. Anyways, welcome. It's great to have you here. A couple things I don't want to forget just before we get going. One is we have life groups starting next term, right? So starting in March there, we have congregational midweek the first week of March, and then we go into the rest of the classes that are going to be starting. And so sign up for those, please. We want to get everybody kind of attending one of those, of course, who would like everybody there. B is anybody that's going to be in the prayer group, there's books. We need to buy the books. The books are available at the back there. They're a good price, and if you're in that group, you want to get the book. You're going to need the book. So definitely want to encourage you to do that. As well, on the note of prayer, Todd is doing an awesome job, a faithful job of coming in every morning on Sunday morning and going around with and having the prayer ministry. So it would be encouraging to have people join that and get in there. He's got a few people come in and it's starting to grow a little bit. So go and encourage yourself, get inspired by God and do that. So that's my little advertisement for the morning. Now we can start. Okay, so we're going to spend 6 weeks talking about this question, ask it. Okay, so this is week 3, and the reason this isn't just a message. We're not just trying to have a series of different things that might or might not be useful for you. Is that me clicking or is somebody else? I hope it's not me. So you guys? What am I doing? I'm not doing anything wrong. Okay, so anyway, so we're spending 6 weeks on this because we truly believe this is one of the most important questions we can be asking ourselves. Right? This has got the power to do amazing things. Not only for any future things, future ways that you might be able to ask this question, anything you're getting into, different ideas of wisdom or of areas that you might get into, you want to be asking this question. We also believe that it's a really important question to be asking from things gone past. You know, it probably would have saved you a ton more tears, a ton of different things that would have helped. You want to do something with it? Oh. Excuse me. Talk about. Hello. Good so far. We'll see. Oh yeah, it could be my shirt. The text. I'll just let you know, Shane has had nothing but problems this morning. So I was about to get up here with my iPad to show you the presentation today. So be grateful because it's hard to read from that compared to that. So anyways, but again, looking back at it, I don't know about you guys, but had I asked this question in many circumstances in my life, it would have been a different outcome, I think. Right? And so that's why we're doing this. We want us all to be wiser. We all want us to be making better decisions. So I'm going to bring up the question and we're going to read it together, right? You guys can do that for me, right? So we're going to bring the question up and we're going to do it, and the question is, what's the not bad. How about one more time? Okay, that's awesome. Right? Don't you think if we actually ask that question on an ongoing basis, that would make our lives a little bit better? Right? Now, I don't know about you guys, but Eddie's got the little pig with the 3D glasses on. I'm not doing that. I'm sorry. That's just not my style. But it is a kind of a three-dimensional question. We want to be able to ask it in 3 dimensions. One is, in light of our past experiences, our current circumstances, and our future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing for me to do? Right? You and I all have different pasts. Right? I have no problem going to the bar and having a drink. But there's guys that you can't just go to the bar and have a drink with. That's not a wise decision for them to make. Right? That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. In light of our past decisions, in light of our past, how are we going to make changes in our current circumstance, or in the decisions that we make? In our current circumstances, what are you working on right now? What's going on for you right now? What are you working through right now? You've got to make decisions based on that for yourself. And then in light of our future hopes and dreams, my dreams are different than Ed's dreams, even different than my wife's dreams. We all have different future that we're expecting. And so in light of those 3 things, how are we making the decisions differently today? How are we making what is the wise thing for me to do? It's not the right thing to do, because there's a lot of ways you can do the right thing, but that's not necessarily the right thing, isn't necessarily the best thing for me. There's nothing wrong with going to the bar, but maybe that's not good for some people. So it's not about being right. It's not about being legal. Legal's a great way to do it, but that's not the only way we should do it. And it's certainly not, the least that we can get away with. I don't know about you guys, we should have left that in high school. Okay, maybe we didn't all leave that in high school, but hopefully we've got that down. It's not the least we can get away with, but what is the wise thing to do? Okay, so today we're talking about time. Time. Not Cyndi Lauper's time after time. This is time over time, okay? Thank you, Linda. I appreciate it. Thank you. But yeah, we're talking about time today, and we're going to look at it. And Job said something hugely important about this. So it's very important for us to look at it. It says, because as Job was talking about God, he said, you, talking to God, he says, you have decided the length of our years. You know how many months we will live, and we are not given a minute longer. That's a pretty powerful statement, right? We know that time is our most important commodity. Everything that we have, that's it. You know, the moment we're born, that hourglass or day glass or year glass kind of gets turned over, and it starts counting. The problem is we don't know when it's going to empty out, right? Hopefully I don't walk out of here and get hit by a bus. I guess buses run on Sunday, right? Mike, they run on Sunday? Right? But, that could happen. And if that happens, my time is up. And I get to go with God. Amen, that's awesome. Not so great for, my wife and my kids and the people around me. But the point is, we don't know how much time we have. It wasn't given to us. Nobody wrote it on, there's no expiry date on our birth certificate. Some do, but that's a different story. But you know what I mean? So we don't know how much time we have to live. How are we going to do it? Because you can do all kinds of things. You can overeat. I certainly do that. We can overspend, and I've done that as well, and we can overachieve. Yes, of course, I've done that as well. But you can't overlive. You're not going to get any more time. You get what you get, and that's all you get. How are you going to live differently? So, we all know what time it is. It's February 19th, 2017 at 11:20. Right? That's the time it is. And that's important to know. We kind of need to know how things are going. But what is more important is what you do with your time. Because we all have a finite amount. What are you going to do with your time? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to go through and look at different aspects of the time scenario and how we do it to honor God. Right? Because we can always make friends. And we can make more friends. I'm not very good at making friends, but that's different problems to deal with. You can make more money. Hopefully you can do that too, but you can't make more time. You can count your friends and you can count your money, but you can't count how much time you have left. So it's always that. So we're going to talk about 4 observations about time. Now, we all deal with the same thing, right? I mean, we all have time. And these are observations. This isn't rocket surgery. Like, we're going to talk about stuff that everybody's going to accept and go, yeah, okay, that makes sense, right? It's not something new, but we often choose not to pay attention to them. That's kind of the way it goes, right? We know the truth. It's like kind of fighting gravity, I say. We know there's certain things, but we go against them anyway. Now, this is good for everybody. The stuff we're going to talk about, it's all founded in Scripture. Right? It's all part of God's plan. God made physics. We can't jump off a mountain and hope we can fly, because that's not going to work for you, just in case you're trying. I mean, I tried it a couple times off my roof when I was a kid. I think Carrie did too. Carrie was talking about that, right? So, we have those different things we try, but you just can't fight that gravity, and you can't fight time. And so we're going to look at some of these things. So even though this applies for everybody, the lessons that we're going to learn and talk about today, these are great for anybody. Whether you're a Christian or not, whether you just looking at it, if we can learn from these things, you're going to learn from it. So it's not just a good idea, but especially for us, if we're disciples, if we call ourselves that we follow God, if we follow Jesus and say, yes, I've committed my life to Him, it's absolutely mandatory. Right? And it's mandatory because we're called to be stewards, right? Not stewards. That's a different thing, right? If we're all called to be stewards, that would be different. So, but we're called to be stewards, right? We're all to be stewards of the things that God has given us. God has given us our money, our family, our friends, our relationships, the things around us, and He's also given us a set amount of time. And we need to look at that and understand what it is. So let's look at the 4 observations about time. So one is investing small amounts of time over time is cumulative. Right? It adds up. If I go and work out a couple times a week, or whatever, 20 minutes a day, 3 times a week, Ed, that's a good idea, right? Yes. I think you'd advise that. So that's going to be a great thing. If I eat better at every meal on an ongoing basis, it's going to be better, right? It's cumulative. It adds up, right? If I put a little bit of money away every paycheck from here until retirement, it's going to be helpful. It's cumulative. It adds up. Now, the funny thing about cumulative, if I miss one, it's not the end of the world, right? If I just miss one of those things, one payment or one workout or one bad, cheat on one meal, it's not a bad thing. It still stays cumulative, right? But if I decide not to and don't do any of that and just avoid, completely ignore this, it's not very cumulative. I'm not going to go to the gym tomorrow, pump a bunch of weights for, a couple hours, and people are going to come out and go, hey, wow, you're looking good. It's just not going to happen, right? The alternate of not being cumulative is just nothing. It's not going to work, right? And same with that is neglect is cumulative, right? If I just don't do anything, it's going to add up. Mostly the pounds, the pounds are going to add up, right? Or the lack of money in my account is going to add up, and it's going to be harder and harder. The thing is, cumulative is easy. Neglect is easy. It's very easy just to ignore it. I don't put it in my calendar to say, I'm just not going to work out today. And on Tuesday, I'm also not going to work out. And then I think Friday I'm going to pencil in, don't work out, right? That's not going to be a good thing, right? We want to, neglect is cumulative. But the funny thing is, it's also extremely costly. What happens if you decide not to put oil in your car ever? Right? I'm just going to neglect my car. I like my car, but I'm just never going to change the oil. Well, it becomes extremely costly when you have to change the engine. Right? Same with working out. If you decide that you're never going to work out and just not do anything active and completely be a couch potato all the time, it's easy. It's also extremely costly in the long run. At some point, you're going to want to do something physically and you're just not going to be able to do it anymore. Right? These are things that neglect is not a great thing. We all know this. These are things we know. Random has no cumulative value. Right? If I just show up and go and do one workout, that's not going to do much. If I eat one I'm going to eat like green vegetables, uncooked, today, and that's it. That's all I'm going to do. Tomorrow, I'm going to look so good. Right? It's not going to happen. Right? Random has no good effect. It has no cumulative value. Right? So look at it this way. If you kind of add up all the things that last year that you did instead of working out, what do you got for it? I bet your email box is empty now. Right? No? Okay. Got to sleep in a little bit longer. That's probably good, right? I'm good with sleeping. It's very important. But it doesn't add up a whole lot. You don't have a whole lot of things to show for randomness, right? If you just do random, it's not going to add anything to the bottom line, right? What do you have instead of doing the things that you should be doing, that you know you ought to be doing? Probably not anything, right? Get up and have a quiet time every morning. That's a good thing. What do you got to show instead of it? Not much, probably. So that's important. So, and then the fourth one that we want to focus in on for a moment here is in the areas that matter most, you cannot make up for misspent time. Right? So, went to university, college, that kind of stuff, or high school? Anybody gone to high school? Yeah, okay. Diego, yeah, okay. Told him I'd call him out. But okay, so if you don't do a good job in studying a little bit every day, at the end of the course, you're going to need to cram, right? You're going to have to try to stuff all that knowledge in a very short amount of time so that you can, pass the class, right? So misspent time is not good. The problem is you can't do all-nighters in the things that are important, right? If you haven't spent time with your spouse, eventually, you can't just kind of spend all day with her and then expect that that's going to be okay. It doesn't work that way. Right? So you can't make up for misspent time. You can't make up for it. You can't just pull an all-nighter in the things that are most important. The things that don't matter, like, for a big presentation at work or, being able to pass a class, those things you can kind of do an all-nighter for, but you can't do it for the things that are most important. And that's what we want to talk about. So if you want to mature as a Christian, if you want to be a stronger disciple, if you want to be better for God, it's only going to be done deposits of time over time. I think it was Leo Tiowen who said, sorry, I'm just adjusting my mic again, see if I can fix that. Leo Tiowen, I think, said, it takes a year to grow a year. I think it was him, right? So it takes a year to grow a year. You can't shortcut that, right? You can do things faster. I love the idea, they talk about the 10,000 hours that it takes to become an expert in things. People are actually debunking that in a lot of ways. But if you focus on the things, you still got to focus on something if you're going to learn. You can't expect to pick up a musical instrument and just start playing. Some people can, but I can't. You have to put in a little bit of time over time, deposits of time over time, to be better at it. And to be more mature as a disciple, you need to do that. You got to keep doing that. So, we're going to look at a scripture, and it's found in Paul. You can look there, not in the book of Paul. Sorry, which one? In Ephesians. Okay, so Ephesians 5:15, you can turn there. And so this is what Paul stops. And if you were going to listen to what God has to say about time, he actually says exactly what we think he's going to say, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And that's kind of the focus. As we zoom in and see what God wants from our lives, this is what he says. In Ephesians 5, Paul is talking here as he's written a book to the church in Ephesus, and it kind of got traveled around as well, but it's a very important book. It's one of my favorite books. And he just kind of really spells out how we need to use our time. It says, so be careful how you live. Be careful, another thing, in how you walk, right? How are you walking and living your life? Be careful. Like, don't just be careless. Be careful on how you live your life. Don't live like fools, but live like those who are wise, right? Learn from the people that are good at this and be wise, right? Make the most of every opportunity. This is an important, the word they actually use, or another version of it kind of talks about it, redeeming. Get the most value out of. If you're going to put something into something, make sure you get the most value out of it. And there's nothing more valuable than our lives. Right? That's the time that we've been given. We have time to do what we need to do, that God has given us. And are we making the most of every opportunity? Are we making the most of everything that we can do with the time that we've been given? Right? And he says this. He says, make the most out of every opportunity in these evil days. So what does he mean by that? Right? Like, are Paul's days more evil than ours? Probably about the same, right? I could argue worse, maybe. But, we are in evil days. No matter what we do, we've got days around us that are happening. And so this is what happens. The rest of the world kind of gets into this groove, and they just kind of cruise through life, and they don't do, much of anything with their time. And on the other side, they're wondering how much, you've seen those things. I'm sure, Facebook is the place where you can find out all kinds of trivial information about kind of anything you want, right? But people talk, the surveys that they do with people that are on their deathbeds, and they're talking to them as they've been old, and nobody's going back thinking, man, I wish I answered another email, right? Man, I wish I spent more time playing those video games. Man, if I could just watch the final season of whatever, right? Nobody's going back. It's the time spent with the things that are important that they were. So my point in this is the days are evil. And everybody's kind of cruising along in their day. And we can kind of grasp that there's so much evil around us, so many temptations, so many things taking us away from what's important. If we just get sucked into that, we're going to walk down a path and probably end up somewhere where we don't want to be. So we've got to be wise. We can't look at things and just like fools. We're not cattle, Moo. Go that way, right? Although there's the funny thing about Christian mooing. Right? Okay, that's a different thing. Okay. But the point is, we're not cattle, right? We're not just kind of walking down the path. The beautiful thing, and I love the analogy, it's the idea of the matrix, right? I love the matrix because of how it kind of is equal or similar to Christianity, right? You're all walking through life, you're not doing anything, and all of a sudden you kind of see the light, you see the truth, and you understand things, and you become a Christian, you change your life, and you walk around here, all of a sudden you're like, oh my goodness, this is amazing, right? And you see everything very, very differently. Well, that's the way it's supposed to be, right? That's what he's saying right here. He says, make the most of every opportunity, because if not, you're going to get sucked in and just be evil. Don't live like fools, but live like those who are wise. Arguably, the Bible gives us more wisdom than anything out there, right? And there's lots of proof in that. We can talk about that in another time. But my point is, are we making the most of every opportunity? So, the question for you today, in this aspect of course, is, are you being wise? You know, what is the wise thing to do? Is, where do you need to begin making consistent deposits of time? Right? Consistent deposits of time over time, that's where the title comes from, time over time, is what will get you the cumulative value of what you want. Our time is given to us, it's a finite amount, what are we doing to it? So today, what can we do to begin making consistent deposits of time? So again, in light of your past circumstances, whatever you did in the past is the past. It is what it is. You can't change that, right? Just messing around with mics and stuff. You can't change the past. But in light of that, what can you begin today that would kind of turn you into a new direction, right? Current circumstances, what are you doing today? What is important? What is going on in your life right now that you can kind of play with? And that's a really important one, because the only thing we're given is really today. You know, we can't really change the past, and we don't really know what the future is going to hold, but we can kind of pivot on today. And so today is Sunday. We have family day tomorrow. Most of us have it off, maybe not everybody, but hopefully you can take an hour or so and just stop and listen. Stop and think. What can you begin today or tomorrow that would really help you to make consistent deposits of time in your life? And thinking about, well, where do you want to go? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish? I can almost guarantee every one of us want to make it to heaven. Right? That's kind of why we're here to some degree, and for the love that God has given us. But the point is, where do you want to go? What do you want to try to accomplish? Are you doing anything towards it today? So, of course, in light of our past experiences, current circumstances, and future hopes and dreams, where do you need to begin making consistent deposits of time? That's your question for today. So, a little bit of a story. There's 3 areas that I wanted to talk about where this made a difference for me. One is with Melissa. So, years ago, actually just before Eddie got here, I was not being a great husband, right? And I was trying to correct and fix my wife. Kind of in a funny way, and that I thought she was amazing, right? And I keep thinking she's amazing, and it echoes back to right when we got married. When we got married, it was the same thing, and of course, you know, about 7 years in, you know, I'm doing the same thing all over again, right? You know, repeating bad habits. But it's like, Melissa, you're awesome. That if you could just fix this one thing, right? So I was spending my time trying to fix Melissa, right? That's what I was doing. My time was being spent doing that. And then I kind of figured it out. God kind of gave me a big whack upside the head and said, no, just serve your wife. Just look after her, protect her, just give all that. So I shifted my time from looking, you know, trying to fix her, and I shifted my time to actually use that same amount of time, and I just did the dishes, I did the, you know, laundry, I'd help with the kids and all this stuff. Our kids were still very young at that time, and I shifted my time to do just that. And I let God look after my wife. You know, I still loved her and looked after her and spent time with her. But my point is, I wasn't using the same time to try to correct her. I was using that time to serve her. That made a massive difference. It regained our friendship. It brought us back to being best friends again. It made a difference in how I saw God, how fast she grew. Here's me trying to fix her, and she's only, you know, she's not growing, she's actually going backwards. You know, I leave her alone, I love her and serve her, and all of a sudden she accelerates faster growth. And it benefits me, it benefits her, it benefits everybody, right? It's awesome. That's one example. Just again, how are we using our time? What can you do today that's going to change the way you do things, right? Second of all, Corbin. Love Corbin, great guy. So again, Corbin and Melissa are very similar, by the way. There's a lot of similarities there. And one of them is, I would spend a lot of time trying to correct Corbin. You know, I'm his dad. I got to fix him. I got to help him see how to do things in life, right? You know, Corbin, if you do it that way, it's going to hurt you, right? Corbin, if you do it that way, it's not going to be good. Corbin, you can't do it that way, right? Like all this kind of stuff. And I'd go in and we'd just be like this all the time. And this is, you know, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, just pounding, constantly back and forth, slam doors, all kinds of things, just wanting to kill them. There's this all this stuff, right? I mean, anybody who's got kids, you kind of know that scenario, but especially if you have a Corbin. But so it's just like, oh my goodness, I can't handle this. And so I made a decision at one point, again, same thing. I can spend my time trying to do this and get absolutely nowhere aside from a big slanted forehead from hitting my head on the wall so many times. Or I can actually stop and just listen and talk to him. And I did. I changed, and I said, okay, I'm going to just spend my time going in and talking with him. Instead of him running away and slamming the door and going, you don't slam the door on me. That was helpful. So, to shift it and go, Corbin, obviously you're ticked off as all get out. What have I done? Start talking to me. And I have to be patient and let it draw out and let him start talking. And as he started talking, I started listening, and I started understanding him more. Now this is Corbin. It's going to be different for every kid, but my point is I started making that connection better, and my time was spent, rather than telling him off or trying to correct him, to turning around and helping and just listening. World of difference. Corbin, I love it. I guarantee it's probably going to change in the next couple of years again still, but for now, it's awesome. We have a great relationship. He comes up and gives me hugs all the time. He makes efforts to do that. It's very encouraging, right? I love spending time with my son. But it's different because I have a different view of it than that. So I could spend my time doing that, or I could spend my time encouraging him. That made all the difference in the world. Last story. So I have a business. As you know, I'm an entrepreneur. I love business. It's just so much fun for me. And it's something that I really enjoy doing. And I would watch TV. You guys can watch TV, that's if you want. I don't watch TV at all anymore because, I don't know what the average Canadian or American watches, but it's a stupid amount of number. We probably aren't at that number, right? But it's still probably more than maybe we could. Because go back to that whole idea of randomness, right? Is it actually making a difference for you? So I took the time that I was spending on TV. It didn't really come as a revelation to me at any point. I just decided, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. I've got too much to do in my business. So I started reading books. So I read, I don't have much of an education. I barely got my way through high school, and I'm not the smartest guy in the room. But when it really comes down to it, I just decided to start reading books instead. And so I read probably and listened to, 60 books in the last couple years. Right? And so just consuming everything I can on business, on how things work, on everything like that. And everything started kind of coming together at the end of last year, because I never knew where it was going to go, but I detest watching TV. It just feels like I'm just not doing something I could be doing. And so I took the time that I was spending doing that, 2 hours, 3 hours, half an hour, whatever it is a night, and I put it into something more valuable, spending time with the kids, spending time with my wife, and reading. Reading and reading and reading, studying and building and creating something. And I created an entire model around entrepreneurs. And it's starting to be picked up. I just talked to the U of A on Thursday, and it looks like they want to use it for all the entrepreneurs going through their system at eHub. That's cool. So that's a great start. These are the things. But I would not have built that and have something like that if it wasn't for all the reading that came first. And then it took the time to put the model together and all the forms that went with it. Ask anybody come and talk to me about the forms. Oh, Mikhail, you like that last one that didn't save? That was awesome, right? Yeah, pointless. So redo, redo, redo. Anyways, the point is, what are you doing with your time? Right? Where do we need to begin making small investments of time over time to get what we are looking for? Right? And you really got to ask yourself, if you are not doing this, there's a couple things. One, let's not label it too heavily, but just consider, are we being good stewards of the time that God has given us? But on the second side, are you really working for your own best interests? You got to ask yourself that. If you're not looking after your best interest, who is going to? God will protect you, of course, I think. But I think God is also looking for you to invest. Use your time wisely. Do you have your best interest? So now, let's kind of look at this. This is kind of where we get into some of the more practicals as we kind of finish off the last part of the message here. Jesus had a plan, right? Jesus was incredible. He came to the earth for 3 years and made it a massive impact, right? We're still talking about him today, I'm wondering if anybody will be talking about this message tomorrow. I'm not sure. So, but my point is, Jesus came and in 3 years changed the world for all of eternity. Now, granted, he's the Son of God, and we understand that, but he had a plan, and he was very devoted to his plan, right? He would do what he needed to do, and if you go to Mark 1, you can see that. So in Mark 1, he talks a little bit about that, and he said, we see that kind of in practice. It says, before daybreak the next morning, of course, he was spent the whole night before healing everybody and curing them and making them better and teaching to them. And then he goes and has a few hours sleep. And before daybreak the next morning, Jesus got up and went out into the isolated place to pray. That's how he started his mornings, right? Later, Simon and the others went out to find him. And when they found him, he said, "Hey, everyone's looking for you." Right? But Jesus replied, "We must go on to other towns as well, and I will preach to them too. That is why I came." Right? This is just one example of Jesus having a plan. Right? Jesus had a plan. He could have stayed in, I think it was Capernaum. Todd will probably know. I think he was in Capernaum, healing all these people. He could have probably spent a couple days there, but he didn't. He had things to do. He had a plan. He had to go here. I got to get this done. We got to get up in the morning, pray, spend some time with God, and work that through. Right? God, he had a plan. We see it another example. You've heard me use it before. He's talking, tell that fox that, I'm going to be, go today and go tomorrow, and on the third day I will accomplish my goal, right? He's like driven. He has a plan, and he was working his plan. And in those 3 years, it went and did what he needed to do, and then he died at the end. You guys enjoy that movie last night? Yeah. Ben-Hur was pretty good, eh? We watched the new Ben-Hur, and it kind of ends with the cross and everything. It's pretty powerful. So Jesus had a plan. What's your plan? This is the funny thing. So, most people, and I don't know if you know this, but most people spend more time building a 2-week vacation than they do planning their life. That doesn't make any sense to me. Right? But it's what we do. And it goes back to that whole neglect. You just kind of cruise through life. It's easy. Right? But if you stop and think about it for a second, do you have a plan? If Jesus had a plan, and we're called to be disciples and followers of Jesus, I think we can have a plan too. Now, we can always say there's too much, I just got to be faithful. True. But faithful also kind of ends up just going with the cattle. You know what I'm saying? And so we've got to be willing to put a plan together on how we're doing it. So, as part of my little entrepreneur thing, this isn't a pitch, I'm just saying, you can use it if you want, ignore it if you want, it's totally up to you. I'm just encouraging you guys to have a plan. Sit down and think about where you want to be in 10 years, 20 years, whatever, and start visualizing that. God has given you all amazing talents to be used for His glory. But you can't just let them fall into your lap all the time. You've got to be willing to put something together and plan towards it. Now, I know the Cliff Divers guys have used this blueprint, but the blueprint is there. You can actually go on my website and download this step 1 if you want to. I can talk about it later. But it starts with the idea of, what do you want people to be saying about you at your funeral? What do you want to be thanked for? Right? If you could have people line up and say, "Thank you, Joe, thank you so much for whatever it is." What do you want people to say? That's where it starts, right? Think about that. What do you want? Understanding that is going to help you kind of build towards it, right? And so that's where that is build a blueprint, build a plan. Jesus had a plan. I suggest you guys have a plan. It doesn't have to be this massive day-to-day, do it here and there and everything, but I think there's a framework that you can work within to get some of that. Also, plan your ideal week. So, we've got the big picture. The blueprint of your life is kind of the I call it the telescope, the big picture of everything you're trying to shoot way down. If you look through the telescope, way down to the very end, that's what it might look like. And I break it down into 7 F's, faith, family, friends, finances, fitness, whatever they are, field, that kind of thing. There's 7 of those, and you can kind of paint those out as what they might look like in 10 years. But also, that's the telescope. Bring it down to the microscope. What does your week look like? Do you have time in your week to actually do what you want to do? Right? If you've got just free time all the time, it might not be accomplishing the things you want to get done. Right? If you're sitting down in front of the TV and that's where you spend your evenings, are you doing what you want to be doing? There's so much more to life. Now, I'm not saying, I'm all for winding down. You've got to have fun. I'm a big guy, a big believer in putting fun into your thing. In fact, you can't really see this, I don't think. Well, you can kind of. So this is my kind of weekly plan. It's my ideal week. very rarely do I hit it bang on, okay? I'll say that right out of the gate. But the point is, I kind of have an idea of what I'm trying to do in each week. I have time for all the things I need to do. I got a little spot for administration in there. I got my D time with Eddie there. Get some discipleship time there. I have my quiet times in the morning and breakfast with kids. Now, this might be terrible for you guys, but if you notice, there's no quiet time on Saturday or Sunday. Okay, but that's my free time. I sleep in a little bit. People ask me, hey, let's do something Saturday morning. And I'm sleeping in, because every other morning I'm up at 5:20, right? And so I'm getting up and I'm doing the things I need to do. Church, leaders meeting. But this is kind of the important way to do it. Put personal time in first. Get some time to just wind down. If you don't, I can't remember the rhyme, but, if you don't get time in there, you're going to be suffering, right? Get administration, do your taxes. Make sure you get the oil change done. The administration has to... I think it's a wire chain. Yeah. Anyways, you can still hear. So, but put time in for administration. If you don't get that done, all kinds of other things fall apart, right? So make sure you get time for that. Make some money. Actually, I flip strategy and money making. Just to make sure you get some time to plan, some big picture time, like I talked about. Tomorrow's a great day. Sit down for an hour, just an hour of your free time, and plan out some things that you want to accomplish, right? And then money making. Money making, there's always going to be time to make money, right? So just leave that in there. Now, I'm not saying God and family are not important. I'm just, those in those orders, get those things. You're going to always have God in everything you do, and you should have your family in kind of everything you do as well, right? So this is just a plan. Again, this is something you can download and mess around and play with the different schedules. It's just an Excel sheet, and you can make it up. But what I'm trying to say is I encourage you guys to be intentional with the time that God has given you. It's a finite resource. You guys spend time probably, hopefully, putting money away for the future. You spend time, putting times with your spouse or with your friends to have a relationship. You have time to plan out and do homework and go to school. Build that presentation, whatever it is for work. You put time for all of that. You put time to actually plan out for the most important resource that God has given you. So, it's good to get advice, and this is why I suggest you get advice. I hope you can see that. There is this thing called blind spots. We all have them, right? If this is everything there is to know, I always say that there might be just a little bit that I know. I just know a little bit, right? I don't know everything, but I know a little bit. I know what I know. Then there's a whole bunch of areas I know that I don't know. I don't know how to operate one of those deep sea diving belts. Those big guys that they go down in the tubes, they still have them. I have no idea how to operate one of those. I know I don't know that. Right? There's a lot of things I know that I don't know. Right? But there's a whole lot more of things that I know I don't know that I don't know. That makes sense? I have no idea the things that I don't know. And there's a lot more of them for sure. And I think we can all kind of suggest that that's true. Right? So how do we figure out that blind spot? It is impossible to learn something that you don't know on your own. We go to school because we need to learn something. We have a boss or mentor or coaches to help us see something that we can't. These are all things that we can't know on our own. Are you guys getting advice? How do you see around the blind spots? We all need to. Yeah. Right? Because the blind spots are going to be the thing that kills us. Right? Yeah. Nobody jumped, well, maybe a few did, but nobody jumped in front of a bus, right? Or walked out between cars in front of a bus, and we're, intentionally, necessarily. But my point is, we don't know what we don't know. How are we getting around that? How are we getting that? Because we need to know these things. So as you're planning and thinking of your life, talk to people that know you. Get time spent with them. Ask questions. What do you see that I should work on? How do I kind of grow in this? That's what, as we call them, the discipleship relationships, mentoring relationships are all about. Right? It's not about getting advice and just falling, okay, do that all the time. It's getting input and advice so you can see around the corners. I always say the one with the most information makes the best decisions. Why don't you get more information? Gather as much as possible so you can know everything you need to know. So, I don't know what yours is. It could be just saving money, Begin it today. Start today. Don't buy that coffee, put it away. Or when you buy a coffee, take the change and put it away. Right? There's that model. What do you need to learn? There's something, maybe you have a question on your mind that you're trying to figure out. What is it you need to learn? Begin today. Right? Build that relationship. Something you want to, or end a relationship, whatever it is. Whatever it is that you need to do with your time, begin it today. You've heard this before. I love this statement. Become the person that the person you're looking for is looking for. Right? I'd say that in everything. If you're in business, you want to have a job, a different job. Are you becoming the person that you want, that person's going to want? Right? It fits for everything. What are we doing with our time? Where do you need to begin making consistent deposits of time? Last scripture again, coming back to it. So be careful how you live. It's all for you guys. Be careful how you live. Don't live like fools, but live like those who are wise. Make the most of every opportunity. Time is a finite resource. We don't know how much we have. Spend it wisely. Certainly, please encourage you guys to do that. Amen.